All right, good evening. It's good to see all of you, each one of you. And I know we've got some perhaps online, and we welcome you also. Our bulletin will be going out, and you will get it at some point. There's probably some copies in the back there available to you. We haven't really received any prayer updates that are not going to be reflected in the bulletin at this point. We will mention that we want to extend our Christian love and sympathy to the family of Charles Wallace, or Wally Moore. Mr. Moore was the husband of the late Lee Moore, who I had as a first grade teacher at LPS, and I've gotten a chance to know Wally over the last year or so. The visitation's going to be this Saturday from 12 to 2, and then the memorial service will begin at 2, and all of that will be happening at Neal Funeral Home this Saturday. The Lions Christmas Party is now rescheduled for this Saturday, January the 7th, beginning at 5:30 p.m. at the Gargis' house. You were asked to bring a $15 gift for a gift exchange game. So you only thought gift giving was over for the season. This Sunday, January the 8th, we'll be meeting for feast at 5:30 in the fellowship building. So we'll have feast this Sunday, and then a week from this Sunday, get it in a couple times this month. Our first breakfast Bible study for the year will take place on Monday, January 9th at 6:45 a.m. in the fellowship building. This one will be for all lions, lambs, and their families. If you plan to attend, you're going to want to sign up on the sign-up sheet that's right down here on the communion table. That way enough food can be provided. Sign up tonight. Make it happen tonight. If you're going to be here this Monday at the 6:45 a.m. over there, then you're going to want to sign up tonight. You are invited to a diapers and wipes baby shower in honor of the expected baby boy of Peyton and Sarah Sockwell on Sunday, January the 15th, beginning at 1:00 p.m. in the main foyer. Any brands of diapers and wipes will be appreciated, and diapers in sizes 1 and 2 will obviously be most helpful here on the front end. Important, you must let Sandy Adams know this evening what nights you'll be staying at the hotel for Lads to Leaders. So all those that are planning to go to Lads to Leaders in April, you need to let Sandy Adams know tonight what nights you're going to be staying there at the hotel. And I'll mention one more thing before Jeremy comes up here. Just a little note that Melanie sent me. R.C. Trammell is 98 years old today, but tomorrow he will be 99 years old. And so, we certainly want to maybe send some cards to him. We'll get some information out to you, and maybe brighten his day up a little bit. May even call him. He's still going everywhere he wants to go, and he's real careful. So it's pretty amazing. All right, Jerry. Sorry. Mention this to you, but we've got 2 new adult Bible classes starting tonight. There's this one that'll be in here in the auditorium. And my dad will be kicking it off in here, Living a Life That Matters. And then I will be over in the fellowship building, either classroom or the fellowship building, depending on how many people come. And we're going to start a class entitled Say What? Did Jesus just say that? And what did he mean? Okay, there we go.
We are glad that all of you are here tonight. Got a good crowd. And we appreciate those of you that are visiting with us especially, and encourage you to come back every chance that you have. We started a new quarter Sunday morning, and so that's exciting. We got new teachers that are filtering into classrooms and things like that. We're thankful for all of you that are putting forth so much effort planning those lessons and getting ready to deliver them. So tonight you will also be in a new quarter for Wednesday nights. And so you may have some new teachers, and that can be exciting for our kids and for our teachers as well. We look forward to all of that. Sunday morning, I know at least some of you were studying about Jesus. The next several weeks, some of you are going to be looking at the life of Jesus. And so we started with the beginning of Jesus' life, and so we were studying Jesus being born. Raise your hand if you can tell me what town Jesus was born in. All right, we got several hands up. Okay, on the count of 3, let's say it. 1, 2, 3. Bethlehem. There we go. Now, harder question, but one that you learned the answers to, hopefully. Why was Jesus' family in Bethlehem? Why was Jesus' family in Bethlehem when he was born? There was something going on. They had to travel. And of course, Joseph, his earthly daddy, was in the lineage of David, and so he had to go. Okay, all right. What was the reason? The census, that is right. So Augustus Caesar says you got to number everybody, all the Jews, you're required to do this. And so Bethlehem was the town they had to go to. That's where they went. And of course, they didn't find any room at a motel or a hotel or a Holiday Inn. And so they had to stay out in the barn, basically. And so what was Jesus placed in? What was he wearing? What kind of clothes was Jesus wearing when he was born? Okay, I've heard some whispers. What were the clothes called? 1, 2, 3. Okay, y'all still just whispered it. Swaddling. Swaddling clothes. They swaddle you with those things. And he was placed into a what? Everybody raise your hand if you know what he was placed into. All right, we got more hands up. 1, 2, 3. A manger. It's basically a feeding trough, right? Fancy way to enter the world did Jesus experience. Not fancy at all. But he came, and he was born. And though we don't know exactly when it happened, we know that he was born, and we know that he lived, and we know that he died for us, and that he conquered death and rose from the grave. And so we're going to get to study about a lot of that in the coming weeks, and we look forward to it. Let's all stand up real quick. All right. In the beginning God made the seas and the forest filled with trees and the mountains up so high. At the top he placed the sky. His fingerprints are everywhere just to show how much he cares. In the middle he had some fun. He made a hippo that weighs a ton. Hip, 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 hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. Hip, 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 hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. In the beginning I made the seas and the forest filled with trees and the mountains up so high. At the top he placed the sky. His fingerprints are everywhere just to show how much he cares. In the middle he had some fun. He made a hippo that weighs a ton. Hip, 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 hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. Hip, 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 hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. All right, y'all can have a seat. Carter Hughes, come here. First Wednesday of the year. We got to do Grouchy Rooster. And it's the first one of 2023, so you really got to show everybody how it's done, okay? All right? All right, here we go. Booster, booster, be a booster. Don't be grouchy like a rooster. Walk, 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 walk. Booster, booster, be a booster and boost our Bible school. Booster, don't be grouchy like a rooster. Walk, 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 walk. Booster, booster, be a booster and boost our Bible school. Booster! All right. Thank you, Carter. I did want to mention again, right as we're about to leave, there are some names on here, but not enough. Okay? Not enough names. Breakfast Bible study. Every second and fourth Monday of the month for the rest of this school semester, the Lions will be meeting. But this first one, we are having a combined Lions and Lambs and their families Breakfast Bible Study. Throughout this year, we will be looking at various Psalms and studying and looking at some of those and trying to pray through some of those Psalms at various points for some of those. And we are looking at what is probably the most well-known Psalm of all. If I were to tell you that, who's got a guess? Me too. The 23rd one. That's what we're looking at next Monday morning. It's not my favorite Psalm, but I do like it. It's a good one. And so we're going to be looking through some Psalms, and Monday morning we will be studying and looking at the 23rd Psalm. So please, please, please sign up. If you don't sign up tonight, by the time Sunday gets here, it's still before the Breakfast Bible Study, but I won't have time to make all the preparations that need to be made to have food so that you can eat at said Breakfast Bible Study. So please sign up tonight, and we look forward to that time together. At this time, you are dismissed to your classes.
I think I was flying a spaceship. I got iPads and telephones and PowerPoint and this thing and new year, new quarter, new class. Sunday as I was leaving, Tim tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're it." I said, "Well, can I tag somebody else?" And he said, "No, can't do that." So here we go. First lesson. In fact, I've got a book somewhere. Too much stuff up here. As you can see, lesson number 1, living a life that matters. And I think there's 13 lessons, and they're all this particular book. The lessons don't build on top of each other, but it's going to be a good study. Living a life that matters, and we'll be beginning with the book of Ecclesiastes, the first chapter, and also chapter 12. Well, you know. Solomon, known as the preacher through Ecclesiastes, and through the book of Ecclesiastes, he was pondering the meaning of life, and hence this study, living a life that matters. So our key verse for this study tonight, Ecclesiastes 12, verses 13 and 14. The conclusion, when all has been heard, is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil. As I said, Solomon spent much time contemplating the quest for the meaning of life. And we've seen his conclusion that the pursuit of meaning through worldly channels is vanity. And as we've looked through the book of Ecclesiastes from time to time, we've seen the superiority of wisdom with God in the picture. So our lesson tonight is we'll examine the beginning of his concluding thoughts as Solomon spoke of the need for continued instruction. We'll also note that wise words are like goads that prod us in the right direction, and well-driven nails that establish us when properly placed and applied. So tonight we want to look at Solomon's conclusion to the whole matter. The conclusion of the whole matter. In all that he said through the book of Ecclesiastes, it all boils down to, as we look tonight, these two verses. What do you do about life? And the ultimate solution is herein expressed in these two verses. First, fear God. This is the first of the two things that we're called upon to do. If we fear God, and to fear God is an attitude that leads us to proper actions. The idea of fearing God is twofold. Both to be afraid, or maybe better put, a healthy awareness of what God can and will do to those that reject him, and to reverence him or be in awe, to show a high degree of respect for God, for Jesus. This idea has been addressed all through Ecclesiastes, and it's addressed in the Proverbs. Proverbs 9, verse 10, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Proverbs 1, 7, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." This expression is found some 13 times in Proverbs alone. And beyond that, fearing God is found throughout the Old Testament. It's also a theme in the New Testament. Matthew 10, 28. "Do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." 1 Peter 2:17, "Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king." And then in Hebrews, maybe if my finger works. Hebrews 12, verses 28, 29. Therefore, since we receive a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us show gratitude, by which we may offer to God an acceptable service with reverence and awe. For our God is a consuming fire. Then in Hebrews 10, verses 30, 31, for we know him who said, vengeance is mine, I will repay. And again, the Lord will judge his people. It is a terrifying thing to fall into the hands of the living God. So when we have a proper attitude toward God, then we're ready to act upon that. I'm not keeping up here. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you, James 4 and verse 8. Lives that matter, keep his commandments. Walk prudently when you go to the house of God, Ecclesiastes 5:1. In Deuteronomy 13 and verse 4, you shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him and keep his commandments and obey his voice. You shall serve him and hold fast to him. Luke 6 and verse 46. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? And then Jesus said to his apostles, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. 1 John 2, verses 3 and 4. Now by this we know that we know him. If we keep his commandments, he who says, I know him, and does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. In Hebrews 5 and verse 9, he has become the author of eternal salvation to all who obey him. This is the whole duty of man. Colossians 3:17. Whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 10. Whatever you do, do it with all your might. This applies to every person. So why must I fear God and keep his commandments? You know, the Bible continually warns us of the coming judgment. In the history of Israel and Judah and other nations, we see the judgment of God. And while numerous passages were referring to these judgments, that is, the day of the Lord, we can see in them a look to what awaits us at the end of the world. Hebrews 9:27, we die, then the judgment. Acts 17, verses 30-31, a day has been appointed when God will judge the world. 2 Corinthians 5 and verse 10, we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. We cannot live how we want to because we know a day of reckoning is coming. And then we need to understand concerning that day that we cannot hide from God. He knows everything. Hebrews 4:12-13, paraphrase, there is no creature hidden from his sight. Romans 2 and verse 16, a day is coming when God will judge the secrets of men according to his gospel. 1 Corinthians 4 and verse 5, therefore judge nothing before the time until the Lord comes, who will bring both to light the hidden things of darkness and reveal counsels of the hearts. Then each one's praise will come from God. In Psalm 90 and verse 8, Moses said, you have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in light of your countenance. Numbers 32 and verse 23 finds the warning to Israel, your sins will find you out. And this was spoken to the tribes that chose to remain east of the Jordan River when Israel inherited the land of Canaan. And then Isaiah 29, verses 14 and 15, therefore, behold, I will again do a marvelous work among this people, a marvelous work and a wonder. For the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hidden. Woe to those who seek deep to hide their counsel far from the Lord, and their works are in the dark. They say, who sees us and who knows us? And the truth was, God sees and knows. Now I'm going to change gears a little bit. And I have a question. What is the most difficult thing that God asked us to do? The most difficult thing God asked us to do is to love. And you might say, now, Mack, that's an absolutely ridiculous statement. There are many, many things God asks us to do that are far more difficult than loving. One of the easiest things on earth to do is to love. But I didn't realize how easy it is to love. Consider how simple it is to love by considering the easiest people to love. First, we'll consider the words of love. Since it's simple to love, how often do you tell the individual members of your family that you love them? Do you tell your wife every day that you love her? Do you tell your husband every day that you love him? Right after Shirley and I came back from our honeymoon, we moved into a brand new house. This couple got married, built a new house, and then got divorced and never moved in it. So we got lucked out and got a good deal on a new house. Came off the honeymoon and stayed the first night in our new house. And the next morning, I had to go to work, but Shirley got up earlier and cooked breakfast. And that first meal, I knew that she loved me and worshiped me. She placed a burnt offering in front of me. I better say that's a joke. She may be watching online and I'll be in trouble. There was that one pot of chili she made one time. And I tried to feed it to the dog, but he wouldn't eat it either. Do you tell each of your children at home every day that you love them? I know all our children mostly are not in here, but you tell mom and dad every day that you love them. And I feel certain that every one of us tell every member of our family every day, I love you, because it's such an easy thing to do, and we're only talking about using words. Second, how often do you tell your husband, your wife, each of your children, your mom or dad, in specifics, why you love him or her? If I were to ask you to write down why your husband, wife, child, mom, dad said that you were loved, could you do it? Wives, could you write down 3 reasons that your husband told you that he loved you? Husbands, could you write down 3 reasons that your wife told you that she loved you? Children, could you do the same? Moms and dads, could you write down 3 reasons that your children told you they loved you? And I'm sure that each of us could do that because love is so easy. And we're only talking about being truthful with the people we love. Third, I asked each family member to write down 3 things done for you this month to express love for you. Could you do it? What was done this month to express love for you? Wives, husbands, children, moms and dads. And we're only talking about expressing love for the people we should find to be the easiest people to love. And fourth, do the people living in your household know your deepest feelings for each of them? A major crisis exists in our families because many family members just don't feel loved. Husbands and wives in troubled marriages don't feel loved. Husbands and wives and children caught in a bad divorce don't feel loved. People who live in impersonal families or alienated families or families hiding addictions or other things don't feel loved. If loving is so easy, so simple, why do we have so much trouble with love in our families? And you might say, well, Mack, you might have a point about families, but you don't have a point about God. The most difficult thing God asks us to do cannot possibly be to love. It has to be something else. Well, like what? Well, the most difficult thing that God asks us to do must be some act of obedience. Well, you're probably right. It must be obedience. Matthew 22, verses 36 through 38. Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. Romans 13, verses 8 through 10. Owe nothing to anyone except to love one another. For he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. For this, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet. And if there is any other commandment, it is summed up in this saying, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfillment of the law. Well, now you say, well, now the most difficult thing to do has to be some sacrifice. That's got to be it. Some sacrifice. Can't be love. Well, maybe you're right. John 3:16. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. 2 Corinthians 5, verses 14 and 15. For the love of Christ controls us, having concluded this, that one died for all, therefore all died. He died for all, so that they who live might no longer live for themselves, but for him who died and rose again on their behalf. So why is loving the most difficult thing that God ever asks us to do? I don't think it's really necessary for me to answer that question. I think all of us understand all too well why it is so difficult to be a loving person. You know, as a result of years working with people and over 45 years of owning and running a business and doing a lot of other things in between, having 15 employees, full-time, part-time, 90% probably in over 40 years have been women or young ladies. I always like to hire a junior or senior in high school, especially if they were going to go to Columbia State for 4 years. That way I could get 5 or 6 years worth of work out of them. Have them real trained, real good. And I usually only hired people that were recommended to me by my former employers or new employees. I've hired people on the spot. I can remember working one day and we were needing a front-end person part-time, and the pharmacy tech back there punched me on the shoulder and said, "You need to hire that girl." I said, "I do?" She said, "Yeah, she'd be a good one." So I looked over the counter. I said, "You want a job?" She turned red in the face, and she said, "Well, I guess so." She said, "When do you want me to start?" I said, "Well, tomorrow about 3 o'clock will be fine." She worked for 7 years and went on pharmacy school and came back and worked for me as a pharmacist. I've had 3 or 4 go to school to be pharmacists. Had some that went to medical school. Had some that got married right out of high school. But I've told some of them one day, I said, "You know, some of the ones I had been with me for 25 years. I said, "You know, it's probably true. I probably know more about y'all than your husbands do." And they sort of giggled, and then they said, "Well, you probably do." But it's been my experience and my observation that people who declare that it's easy and simple to love are the people who do not love. I've been through all kinds of things with employees, marriages, divorces, boyfriend breakups. Some that were killed in car wrecks, some by other means. And I've had some that just had a hard time. But it's simple to love are the people who do not love. They talk about love, but they actually don't do much loving. And to be honest, would you honestly say that one of the easiest and simplest things you do in your life is to love other people? To feel love for other people and express love for other people. If you are honestly convinced that loving is easy and simple, would you consider the last night of Jesus' earthly life? If Jesus knew that all his disciples would desert him, why did Jesus take them to the garden? Have you ever been deserted? Did you enjoy that experience? Then why did Jesus do that? Because of love. If Jesus knew that Peter would deny him 3 times, why did Jesus take Peter to the actual place he prayed and asked Peter to pray also? Have you ever been denied or wronged by your best friend? Did you enjoy the experience? Would you knowingly create that experience? Then why did Jesus do it? Because of love. With all the power and options available to Jesus, why did he surrender to the soldiers when he knew they would kill him? Would you do that? Then why did Jesus do that? Because of love. Why endure the agony of the cross? Because of love. Why pray for the forgiveness of the mob who rejoiced in his death? Because of love. Why be kind enough to save a thief who died beside him? Because of love. And you say, well, Mack, put the situation in perspective here. Jesus was the Son of God. And so are you, and so am I. Do we not pray, our Father in heaven? I remember Brother Red Mitchell used to lead a song from time to time. He could have called 10,000 angels. And I think about Brother Red every time I try to get up here. I have to make sure this thing's secure so I can pull myself up here. And he would pop up these steps. He was in his 80s, and he bounced up here like a young rabbit. And here I am, just barely getting around. But we sang that song one Sunday. He could have called 10,000 angels. Seth, my number 2 son, he was about 4 or 5 years old, and we were going home. He started singing. He could have called. And he said, he could have called 10,000 agents. And I said, it's angels, not agents. But anyway, that's what he thought we were singing. And in fact, he could have called 10,000 angels. Loving is the most difficult thing God asks us to do, because all the difficult things God does for us begins with his loving us. Love breathes grace upon all it touches. It is good and kind to those who do not deserve goodness and kindness. We who love share grace for one reason. That is the way God's love treats us. Love is an ever-flowing fountain of mercy. You can show mercy only to people who do not deserve it. We who love show mercy for only one reason, and that is the way God's love treats us. Love forgives failures. Love forgives mistakes. You forgive people who failed you and hurt you. We forgive for only one reason, and that's the way God's love treats us. If we remove love from our lives and our motives, we remove God from our lives and our actions. There were many problems in the congregation at Corinth. Were the mean-spirited squabbles in their worship assemblies? Many things that should not be able to exist when Christians gather to worship were there. Superiority attitudes, arrogance, jealousies, rivalries, condescending attitudes. Too many members were full of their own sense of self-importance because love did not exist. They grotesquely abused the gifts of the Spirit and the power of God. 1 Corinthians 12:31 through 13:3. And I show you a still more excellent way. If I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but you do not have love, I have become a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and know all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. And if I give all my possessions to feed the poor, and if I surrender my body to be burned, but do not have love, it profits me nothing. In other words, if I spoke every human language, and I even spoke the language spoken in heaven, but there was no love in me or what I did, it would only be a noise. If I, by divine revelation, could teach the truth of God accurately, if I could explain every spiritual mystery, the exact work of the Holy Spirit, exactly where we go when we die, exactly what we will experience when we die, exactly what will happen in the resurrection, if I personally possessed the most powerful faith on earth, but had no love, I'm a spiritual nothing. If I am totally benevolent, even to the point of sacrificing my life, and do not have love, there's no spiritual benefit in my benevolence. Matthew 5:46 and 47. If we love those who love us, we are no different to people who do not believe in God. If we only love the ones that love us and don't love the others of the world, we're no different from those people that do not believe in God. You know, this congregation is a great and growing congregation. All the young children that run around on Wednesday night is just refreshing. I've been here since this congregation was established back in the 50s when we met at the National Guard Armory. And I've seen a time where the median age of this congregation was probably 60 or better. It was getting old. But it's been re-energized. People are moving in, younger folks. People are having children. We're doing great works here. And there's works going on in this congregation that most of us have no idea what is being done or who's doing it. But there's time to time you hear things and just amazed at the people and how they treat and love the people beyond these walls. But no matter what we do, if we're not a people who love and who are motivated by love, nothing we do will mean anything to God. If love does not rule our hearts, our minds, and our emotions, God cannot use us. But Satan can. But God can't. Satan has his greatest successes in the darkness and void where there is no love. God cannot function where there is no love. And that's true in marriage. That's true in the home. That's true in the congregation. That's true in the community. That's true in the nation. That's true in the world. Perhaps the reason so many people think it's so easy to love is because we have never truly discovered what love is. And I abide by the 3 S's of public speaking: stand up, speak up, and shut up. Thank you for your attention.